Welcome, everybody. The meeting will come to order. First order of business, public comment. Name, address, come to the podium, 3 minutes. Please.
John Tappan, Chair and Bookkeeper for the Trustees of Trust Funds, so technically this is not public comment. At the last board meeting, the Trustees of Trust Funds were asked 2 questions by the board. And we had a meeting late last week to answer those questions. I don't have signed letters yet, but I want to bring what our answers were. The first was a request to use the Town Buildings Capital Reserve Fund to pay for costs involved in acquiring and/or installing photovoltaic panels on or adjacent to the public safety complex or other town buildings. And our answer is yes, you can use that fund. If the solar array is sized to the energy consumption of the building or buildings that it serves, then the solar array is a capital improvement to a town building. That little bit of stipulation there is just stating the obvious, that you can't use the Town Buildings Capital Reserve Fund to build a solar farm and get into the energy generation business. The other question we were asked, and actually I kind of volunteered for this question, was about the $60,000 that was deposited into the Library Capital Reserve Fund by Warrant Article 19 during the 2010 town meeting. Can that be used for the same purpose as the currently existing Lee Library Building Capital Reserve Fund? And again, our answer is yes. That $60,000 can be used for the same purpose as the Lee Library Building Capital Reserve Fund. We do ask that you use this $60,000 at the earliest practical time in funding the construction and renovation. Recognizing that that fund doesn't have agents to expend, and so it may not fit in with one of the warrant articles tonight because that's a smaller amount. But what we want to avoid is, in case there's any money left over when the buildings are finished, we don't want the money left over to be a piece of that $60,000. We would prefer to have it in the Library Buildings Capital Reserve Fund, because then you could cleanly discontinue it or do a change of purpose. And no, we're not going to calculate and hold separate any interest that $60,000 generated while it was in the other fund. It's not a practical difference because a larger library is going to need furnishings, and those furnishings would be paid for out of the Library Capital Reserve Fund. And so it would have the earnings that the $60,000, and it all ends up in the library.
Yes.
So, any questions?
Questions on the board? Thank you very much. Thank you. Please come forward.
My name is Mary Ellen Webb, and I'm a resident of 12 Earl Drive, and I'm a teacher at Massway Elementary. And I wanted to speak about the vernal pool and the forests that are behind the Massway School. So every year, the vernal pool becomes an open-air classroom for many of the Massway School classes. And weekly, we make the 10-minute walk to the pool behind the school where we learn about seasonal cycles, habitats, metamorphosis, and the animals that live in the forest there. And because this area is so close to our classrooms, we can spend the better part of each hour's class really studying and observing. Each class keeps a journal of notes and drawings where we record what we see and we hear during each of these outings. By the end of the school year, students have learned to recognize and name an impressive number of plants, trees, and animals. So the vernal pool and the surrounding forests are an invaluable educational resource, one that has for decades been integrated into the Massway curriculum. So placing these 7 acres under easement would help ensure that the future generations of students will continue to be enriched by this beautiful natural resource that we're lucky to have. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions? Thank you very much. Anybody else? Okay, we'll move on to the next item. We're going to open up for the public hearing for the budget.
So our last discussion, or our last first run-through of the warrant, we added 3 additional warrant articles. One was to put some language in here regarding the purchase of the piece of land from the church. That's Article 5. Article 6 is a draft to raise and appropriate funding for architectural and engineering preliminary design for the town center project. And then third was the warrant article for a deposit of $100,000 into the library building capital reserve fund. I think the rest of them are as we discussed them last week.
You want to go through these one by one again, see if there's any changes or any questions? There are obviously Articles 2 and 3 are from the planning board. I think they're self-explanatory. Article 4 obviously provides veterans tax credit. I think we decided to go with the full amount, so it's Article 5 is $200,000, and can you remind me again how we came up with that figure?
Well, that's not the final figure, because we still don't have the number from the firm in terms of the demolition hazardous waste. So that number is going to be different.
Is this going to change?
Yeah.
I'm a little confused here. I mean, why don't we ask for an offer on the land without the parsonage building? Why are we saying here that we're gonna buy the parsonage building?
Well, the idea was that it would be removed. That's the part that's not in here.
Well, then the church could remove it.
They don't have any money to do that.
They would have if we buy the land.
But then we own it.
No, we can buy, there was a drawing that showed the parcel
oh,
without the
different.
parsonage being included, and I thought that's what we were gonna go after.
No. We can go after whatever we want to go after.
Well, I just don't see why we wouldn't ask them to give us a price on the land without the parsonage, and then they can deal with the parsonage. They can include the price of moving the parsonage and the request for what they want for the land, if that's what they wanted to do. I just don't know why we should be taking over the job of doing something with the parsonage.
I look at it this way, of the opportunity to gain more land for the town center. There's no other land available, so why not grab as much as we can?
I see.
Unfortunately, it does have
So
the
we're gonna do
building.
the Bannister property too? I mean, that's as much land as we can.
There's more opportunity for expansion than this area. But you're right, at $200,000 is still questionable at this time.
Because it breaks down, 175 for the whole parcel, $15,000 for doing the lot line adjustment and the legal fees. And the part that's not in here is the amount to remove the building. And the thing that is not in Article 5 is one of the things, I'm not sure if you're a sticker on this, Mr. LaCourse, but in terms of the article should say the building will be removed by a period of time.
There is, most likely, we're going to put some language in there.
So if we can include language that says the current structure, and I think it's officially called the parish house, because there's no parson living in it,
Yeah, so it's a parish house.
needs to be removed of our July 1st, 2019. Because I believe the Heritage Commission requested it till June of 2019 to find something to do with it.
And continuing the discussion that Mr. Carey brought up is the other opportunities, we can negotiate the price and let them take down the parish house.
Either way, somebody's gonna take it down.
Either way, somebody's going to take it down, so I think there's a little further discussion. I'm going to continue this budget hearing anyways, no matter what happens, because we have further discussion.
So you want to add language that says the parish house shall be removed, but not necessarily language that says who's removing it?
I don't think we have to say who.
I'm just Just asking.
I think it's imperative that the voter know what they're getting.
Mhm.
So it's clear that they're not getting the parsonage,
Yeah.
the parish house.
Yeah.
The town is not gonna be renovating it, the town's not gonna be doing anything to maintain that particular structure.
Store or maintain.
And by July 1st, 2019? Okay.
Just so they know that there's a
Mhm.
date, it's not gonna go on for 10 years or whatever, so.
Their hand up. Still
Well,
up?
if people have questions, is this the time to,
Yes, this is the
Or
time to
comments?
do it. Please, so,
okay, so
Oh, yeah.
this pertain, okay. Ann Tappan, Stepping Stone Road. While contemplating this warrant article about the church property purchase, I recalled a situation from my past. I'd like to tell you a brief story. My old VW hatchback needed an upgrade. I needed more space to carry stuff. My neighbor had a red Toyota pickup truck with a white cap. I coveted that truck. It would be perfect, but it wasn't for sale, so I had been looking elsewhere for quite a while. One day my neighbor mentioned that he was selling his truck. He needed money. Did I say to him, "That's too bad. Good luck finding a buyer"? While I continued to look elsewhere? No, I said, I'll buy it now. It's just what I need. Transactions were made and the truck served me very well for many years. The town has struggled for years to find a solution to the town center building space needs problem, acknowledging that the town-owned parcel was too small. Previous committees considered other possibilities, while at the same time looking next door toward the church and saying, too bad some of that church land isn't for sale. Even though the land was not for sale at the time, when the most recent facilities committee evaluated options for the town, they determined that purchasing church land would give the town the best options and presented recommendations to the select board based on those findings. Well, unexpectedly, now 5.4 acres of church land is available, so now is the time to buy it. This opportunity will not come around again. There is money available in the unassigned fund balance, and this is an appropriate use. I fully realize that the purchase of a used truck is not the same as investing in land. The point is, recognize an opportunity and take action. This land purchase is an investment that will matter far into the future, providing options and opportunities for the town now and for decades to come. I urge the board to direct money from the unassigned fund balance for the full purchase of the land, and that the Board of Selectmen give their recommendation of this warrant article to the voters. Thank you.
thank you very much. Comment, please.
Paul Gazowski, 46 Lamprey Lane. I'm sure the board understands this, and those who've been paying attention understand, but the voters need to understand that the town center proposal needs this piece of property. There is not adequate space, regardless of where the town hall is built, for expansion of the library, for renovations of the town hall, and for the other parts of the plan that are contingent on this piece of property. John Tappan has illustrated that in several maps that he's drawn up, and I went to the website today for the Vision Committee, and I didn't see any of John's maps there. I think they would be helpful because they illustrate when you subtract setbacks, all the setbacks, with the current piece of land that we own, what's left. And what's left is inviable for the current plan for the library, for the Historical Society, for the town hall, for parking, for perhaps for septic, but there's a real problem. So we do need the church property, and I'm behind the board, at least some board members supporting this. I would like to thank all board members for the support, just because it is about our town center. Now, specifically, I do have some suggested revisions or additions to this warrant article, and I'll explain them. I made copies. So, I think that's enough to go around here, and I'm willing to share with folks here. There probably aren't enough to go around, so please look on. With the town center firmly in mind and our need to build a new town hall firmly in mind, the first revision I would suggest is the addition of language. The parcel abuts town property that includes town hall, the annex, the library, comma, the historical museum, and tool shed. That would complete the buildings that are in play. The second revision would add a little bit more language to that. Town parcel abuts town property that includes town hall, the annex, the library, the historical museum, and the tool shed. Purchase of this property enables the proposed town center project to move forward. I think that tells it like it is. That without this land, we can't really move forward, regardless of where the town hall goes. So I'll kind of leave it at that for your consideration, and maybe for comments from others about this. Before I sit down, the warrant has to be determined, set by the 22nd.
That's the schedule. It has to be posted by the 29th.
When does the language have to be set?
It has to be posted by the 29th, but VRA needs to have time to review it.
Okay,
VRA
so,
has already taken a first pass at it, and some things needed to be modified. So hopefully the board will approve the entire warrant on the 22nd. Hopefully VRA will be okay with it, and then we can post it by the deadline of the 29th.
okay, so the goal is the 22nd, which is next Monday night.
Correct.
To everybody here and everybody listening, this is important stuff.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Please.
Chuck Cox, 36 Captain Smith Emerson Road. I guess I'm sort of supporting what has been said. I think the two things. One is that that the monies come from the unappropriated fund balance. I think we need to do what we can to make sure. I think that this is important for the town, and anything we can do to make people feel it's sweeter than that, I think we need to do that. I think the descriptions, so that people know what this property is, and that hopefully that maps and stuff are available. I don't know how this normally goes in, but this needs to be well known so people know what they are buying. I think we've sort of, I don't know, I was at the tour of the parsonage, and I guess it seems to be assumed here that it's got to be torn down. I was not clear that that was the decision was made then, or who has made that decision, that is basically what's going to happen. It may be what's happened. It's not stated in here. I think that may be well and good that it's not stated here that that building has to be removed. I think there's a number of options that could come forward. I don't know what they are. We haven't seen figures, or whether there's other people that have ideas on this. So I would not necessarily assume that well, you're seeing the parsonage as a real liability, and I'm not sure if that is the conclusion that came from that tour. But I would like to know that has been looked at and see what happens with that. But I think it's very good that it does the possible changes here, including where it's located next to with the libraries and other things. And I guess I guess that's in the next part. I'll have some comments there. We keep talking about the town hall, and whether it's town hall or whether it's town office. And I think there may be a distinction there, what the function of this building may be, or what the combinations of things are, so that needs to be looked at. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Please.
Deborah Shanda, Hill Farm Road. I just wanted to, I also had the comment written down to share that I thought we should at least have some purpose associated with Article 5. And I had written, in order to allow for future expansion of the town center site as required. And the document that was passed out, I just don't want people to think that this is wrapped into the larger millions of dollars, so that we divorce it a little bit. So we say that in order for the town center project to move forward, much as Ann talked about, it is our responsibility, my thinking that it's our responsibility to move forward with this regardless of what we do in the next year or the next 2 years, because this is really preparing us for future generations.
Thank you. Please.
John Tappan, 187 Stepping Stones Road. And I was going to wait until we got to the other warrant articles that are planning to remove money from the unassigned fund balance. But because it's been brought up several times already, I would like to speak to that. And I'm going to quote from Government Finance Officers Association, Best Practices Fund Balance Guidelines for the General Fund. In 2 places on the 3rd page, note 4, where it has a quote from the recommended practices 4.1 of the National Advisory Council on State and Local Budgeting Governments on the need to, quote, maintain a prudent level of financial resources to protect against reducing service levels or raising taxes and fees because of temporary revenue shortfalls or unpredicted one-time expenditures. And that's the important part, that one of the purposes of maintaining fund balance is to be able to cover unpredicted one-time expenditures. In the second full paragraph on that page, unrestricted fund balance above formal policy requirement, the last sentence states, in all cases, use of those funds should be prohibited as a funding source for ongoing recurring expenditures. In the warrant articles that come up as they're written right now, there's one for the fire, money to go into the fire equipment capital reserve fund, another one for highway equipment, and one for roads and bridges. You might think that fire equipment is unexpected. It varies a lot. This year we're planning on buying a vehicle for $57,000. A few years down the road it's one for 10 times that much. But because of the CIP, these are in fact just ongoing recurring expenditures. Looking at the CIP for the fire equipment, next year $155,000, then $160,000, $160,000, $160,000, $160,000, $160,000, $150,000, $150,000. For highway equipment, $55,000 all across the board. And for bridge replacement, $60,000 all across the board for the next 10 years. So these are clearly ongoing recurring expenditures. Whereas purchasing the church land, that almost certainly is an unpredicted one-time expenditure. And it's not going to come up again. And from looking at the history, it may not have come up in the past 170 years. So it is entirely appropriate that unassigned fund balance be used for that purchase.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Just moving on.
Okay, getting a better position.
So the reason I did not include a sentence as was suggested in Mr. Gazowski's revision 5.2 was that I heard at numerous meetings that there was a desire to buy the property regardless. In other words, to specifically not tie it to the new town hall or the town center project.
And that is correct. I think that was a comment that I had made, that no matter what happens, we should buy this piece of land for possible expansion down the road. And no matter what happens, we should purchase it anyways. So, absolutely.
So maybe we can include, I liked what Ms. Shanda said in terms of
A purpose?
a purpose.
I can share with you afterwards. I didn't make copies unfortunately, but I can leave it with you.
No, I just, because I was reading up on this again today, we just have to be cautious of advocating within a warrant article.
Well, I think you need to let the voter know why we're buying this, just because we want to, or is there some purpose?
That explanation could certainly come in the voter's guide, that explanation could certainly come in the further
The
section.
voter's guide?
It just, I'll put in whatever language you want, it just needs to pass muster with the DRA.
Of course.
Well, the other thing I'd like to change, which I think half a dozen people already said it, I would like to change the funding source from taxation to the unassigned fund balance in terms of paying for this particular item, whatever the total happens to be.
So do we have the unassigned fund balance?
What's in it?
Yes.
Based on the MS 535, which is not a final audit report, $2,061,022. You had previously assigned $270,000 to the various warrant articles, 3 warrant articles. So if you applied 200,000, you're getting down to the 1533, that would be 10%. Unless you change the other warrant articles.
Oh, we've yet to get there, yes.
Yeah, that's where we are, that's where we are right now.
Yes.
So put in that it's coming out of the
Yes.
unassigned fund balance.
Yes.
Oh, can we also change it to Parsonage Building, because it's called the Parish House?
You mean change it to parish house?
Yeah, because that's
Yeah,
what it
I
actually
already wrote,
is.
I already wrote
Okay,
that.
sorry.
So, just for clarification, tool shed? Where's the tool shed?
That's the
The
whole
whole
thing.
shed.
I thought it was the trap house or something.
It keeps getting changed.
Trying to keep it not wordy.
Okay.
Right now, it is a tool shed.
The tool shed with the tramp room, that's. Can I also share some things in terms of with the people that are here? The tour that we took of the Parish House a week and a half ago, we had some professional people come. One of them is somebody who lives in town, and he does renovations of old houses. So we brought him in to see, is there anything of value in the Parish House? And he did the tour, and we talked with some different people afterwards, and his opinion was there's no way that he would even invest in the property. It's in such bad shape, he would not even consider buying it and renovating it because he'd have to rip the whole thing out. There's some structural problems with it. So he does not see any value in terms of somebody coming from the outside, purchasing it and doing anything with it. We also had a gentleman from the New Hampshire Preservation Alliance. He is going to give us a report in terms of what he found. He has also got some money in terms of that he will put toward finding a new home for it or doing something with it. So I think that is something that I think the Heritage Commission will pursue in terms of doing something with the building. So there's some avenues out there in terms of doing something constructive with it. I don't know if there's any possibility to do it, but at least they can explore doing that particular thing. But the general consensus was that it's in such sad shape. The front room, the carrying timbers aren't even touching the sill anymore. It's only the floorboards are holding everything up. So they just don't have any money to maintain it, so it's kind of like falling on hard times. So the other thing the gentleman said is there's nothing of architectural value that he would want to even take out of it. The only thing he did mention is the 2 front doors that kind of open up. He says there's some worth there, but he can go to Massachusetts and find 100 of them for next to nothing. So there's nothing really there that he sees of any value in terms of saving. But we're supposed to be getting a report, which I'll share with this group, so you'll know in terms of what the preservation person has to say about it. So I just want to share that with people so they know the condition of the building. So.
Okay. We ready to move on? All right, let's move on to Article 6. This was $130,000 for schematic design, preliminary engineering and construction and so forth. And then it has a line down there, further authorized withdrawal from question mark from the town building capital reserve fund, and question mark from the Lee Library building capital reserve fund. Do you have any visions?
Couple of things. The sentence in the middle I'd like us to remove. It says the town hall will be constructed at, I'd like to remove that whole sentence. Further, in terms of the last part of it, I think that if we were to take out whatever 70% of what the total is, and out of the town building fund, and 30% out of the library building fund, in terms of the total amount, we've not decided on that particular number. We put in 130, but that's what Mr. O'Donnell's quote is. I
That's a
think
whole
his
thing.
quote is high.
Yes, I do.
And I think maybe if we can agree in terms of what that number is.
So, I'm sorry, you want to take out the sentence, a new town hall, blah, blah, blah?
I would like to propose to take that out, remove it.
Did the other, is there discussion, or before I strike it out, are the other two agreeing?
Why do you want to take it out?
I don't necessarily want to tie us to either one of those particular places. I don't think that's, in terms of tying it to Article 5 as well, I'm comfortable about that.
So then would we add building a new town hall to the other sentence? Because right now that's.
Yes, because, well, town offices, I think we need to, because that's what we'd be constructing
Town
in either
offices.
location. That's, I think, one of the things that we can get into. I have somebody that chastises me every time I do that. The town hall is a town hall.
Correct.
We're building a new town offices, because when you say town hall for both things, people get confused what you're talking about. So we talk about town offices as the new facility, whatever that happens to be, wherever it happens to be. I think that would be clearer in terms of our messaging to people.
I agree with that.
And in terms of the tool shed, if you want to say the tool shed with the tramp room, we've got, further on in the agenda, we've got a document that we're signing. And if we use the same name all the time. And the other thing is just, we always traditionally have called it a hobo shed. Everything that's in the town reports reference tramps, not hobos. And for everybody's edification, there's a difference between tramps and hobos.
There's two different
There's
things.
low hierarchy in terms of, so, hobos, what?
And the word bum.
Well, they're a bit further down. But hobos were itinerant workers that went around our case, went on the railroad. But they worked for a living, but they just moved around a lot. So we had hobos. Tramps are people that, they move around, but they don't like to work, but they'll work if you force them to. So that's like a lower class person. And then there's bums. They're even further down. They don't want to work at all, they just want handouts. So I think Lee had the higher level itinerant workers, not the lower level. But everything in the town reports mentions tramps, they don't mention hobos. So I think hopefully everybody, lots of questions about hobos and tramps.
Okay, please, in the back. They're getting an education here, hobos and tramps.
Bob Guzowski, 46 Lamprey Lane. Indeed, this is a very challenging warrant article, and on the back side of the sheet, if you haven't noticed, I tried to modify this one also. I agree with Selectman Bugby's desire to strike the sentence "for Newtown Hall will be constructed," etc. Because I think that biases this particular warrant article. So I'm glad that you were willing to do that. In my revision 6.1, I added additional language. The management fees for the town center project, parentheses, Plan 2D, which is the plan that in the voter's guide in the backup is the plan that we are actually talking about and promoting. And just a reminder that 2D is not viable unless warrant Article 5, the church property, is purchased. So we are either in this together as a board and as a community, or we aren't. So I think the way these two languages, warrant articles are worded is critical so that the public knows that we're a united front, that we want the town center, that we want a new town hall, and in this particular pass at this effort, we are talking about Plan 2D. Because if we allow or don't advocate for 5 and 5 fails, or if we don't have warrant Article 5 and 5 fails, then the backup is Stevens Field for the town hall, but that leaves the rest of the town center project at a loss. So, and that's not a good path for building community, and that's not a good path for Lee at this point in time. So I would suggest that in my revision 6.1, town center project, parentheses, Plan 2D, which includes construction of a new town hall at the current town center. And that is being forthright and truthful with voters. Thank you.
Thank you. Please.
Hi, Patricia Flacchio with Fall Road. I just wanted to, and maybe I'm the only one who's confused by this, but I wanted some clarification. On the dollar amount, the 130,000, is that a placeholder or is that estimate or?
Right now, it's a placeholder.
Okay.
It's a guesstimate. We don't think it's going to be that high. We're still waiting for some more figures to come in, but it's going to be lower.
It's based on an estimate or a proposal that was given to us by AG Architects.
Okay, but you would be going out for RFPs in the event this warrant article, I mean, that,
If that's what the board wants to do.
and then, okay, thank you, that explains that. And my second point, when you talk about authorizing withdrawal from the capital reserve funds, would that be in addition to the 130,000, or is part of the 130,000?
That's where we get the money from.
Okay, because you're talking about raising and appropriating the sum.
That's standard language.
Okay, because it looks like.
I understand what you're saying, but it is standard language. So if it was 130,000, we'd be taking, I guess it was discussion of 30% of the 130,000 come out of that particular fund.
Okay, so you'd be splitting it
That's
up.
how we would get the money.
Okay, so that would take care of 60,000.
Well, it's just, I'm glad you brought that up, because I was
Because
just
to me it
looking at
was
the
unclear.
calculation, and if we tie it to that particular fund that Mr. Tappan had brought up, that would be the $60,000 from that fund to cover part of this cost.
I don't think he was advocating that. I think he was advocating using 60,000 as soon as possible, but not for this particular thing, because I think the trustees have an issue with that, but he'll tell you because he wants to tell you right now.
He does want to tell us.
Please. Please.
No, and I wasn't, seriously, but to me it wasn't that clear that that was the source of the money.
That
It
is
was
the source
two
of the money.
funds. So I was confused, so thank you, but other people might be,
Okay.
possibly not.
Sir?
30% of 130,000 is 39,000. That's less than the 60. We said at the earliest practical convenience. So it's just much easier to wait till you're actually building stuff and you are spending hundreds of thousands and make the first 60 come out of that fund. And that way it's a nice clean, it's 60,000 and we don't end up with some piece of that 60,000 like $500 left over that you can't spend.
Point well made, thank you. Tom, please.
Representative, Hill Farm Road. One thing I just wanted to speak to directly to Paul, and you're making the assumption that if Article 5 doesn't pass, that we won't have an opportunity to build on the town center. And actually, the proposal from the Facilities Committee spoke to buying the small piece of land that Selectman Brown was speaking about earlier, and actually still being able to locate the town offices on that parcel and extending into the current piece as well. So I just wanted to bring up that one point. And the other thing I wanted to talk about was the Article 6. I actually also had striking the new town hall construction everybody's talking about, but also which includes the renovations and addition. I personally would take that out, and the language that I had put forth was, which has been laid out, let me start again. Preliminary engineering and construction management fees for the town center project, which has been laid out by the Facilities Committee and is continuing to be supported by the Town Center Vision Committee. The plan encompasses all town center buildings. And then we can definitely have as reading points in the voter's guide what that actually is, and we can have drawings, etc. I don't think that Plan D will necessarily be familiar to everyone, but they can easily look up committees, and if we can have the final proposal that the Facilities Committee did do as reading material for them to educate themselves as well, because that is in fact the reason why this is even coming up.
So could you give us that information so you have it written up somewhere?
I do have it written up, and now I can hand it to you because I did not make copies.
Yeah, I'll just,
Yep,
we'll
I
take
do
that into
not.
consideration. Thank you. Thank you very much.
We really should be asking in the warrant articles what we want voters to be voting for, and advocating for them should be something separate.
May I speak again?
Sure.
If you please describe what the difference between what I wrote and the language that talks about advocating, I'm sorry, that's not the right word. That the renovation of the town hall, which includes renovations in addition to the existing library and renovations to the town hall, the historical museum and tool shed. A new town hall will be constructed. How is that individual language different than drawing their attention to those renovations specifically as drawn up by a committee? I don't understand how one is advocating and one isn't. I'm just confused by that,
Just
by
tell
that
me what you
comment.
want me to write, and we'll put it in.
Mhm. We'll take it under consideration.
Thank you.
Anything else on Article 6 at this point?
Please,
Oh, must have missed that hand.
you missed that hand? Well, I had two of them,
Patricia Jenkins, 9 Harvey Mill. First off, I'm guilty. I'm the one that keeps hollering at people for saying we're building a new town hall. We have a town hall, we
Right.
need town offices. And with my Heritage Commission hat, I'm the one that keeps hollering at people. I guess my teacher days are coming out. But in this article, I can see two places where it's going to be confusing. We need we need that land, no matter what. And if it's written up tied to Article 5 or Stevens Field, then it becomes muddy in that if we want Stevens Field, then we have to vote against getting the church land. And that, I find, that's not fair to the voter. If he has to say, okay, I'm reading this, because not everybody studies it beforehand as much as we do. And it looks like we either have to have Article 5 or we have to have the church land. And again, we need the church land no matter where the town offices go. And there are people that want it in the center of town, and there are people that want it on Stevens Field. But that should be a separate decision and not tied into this.
Thank you.
And I propose for article number 6 that we change that 130 to 115.
Yeah, that's more likely.
I just went through, well, I did it before, I went through his proposal that he gave us way back in March of 2017. And there's a few items that I think we could take out because he's not dealing with the committee anymore. A lot of the charges were dealing with the committee and whatever. He or whoever was going to be dealing with us in terms of doing these particular designs and things like that. So I would be comfortable with 115,000, and if we can calculate what the 30 and 70% is,
Sure.
I think that would be appropriate.
Yeah, let me say with respect to Article 5 and 6, we'll take into consideration everybody's comments at this time. And obviously, we're going to come back to this in the next meeting. Okay. All right, let's move on to Article 7. Fire command vehicle. Any issues? No. That should be straightforward. Article 8 is budget. Any changes? Okay. Article 9.
Can we go back to 8? Have we finalized, are there any other changes we need to make in the operating budget?
Possibly.
So we'll get that number at some.
Yeah, this number.
I would say on the 22nd.
Article 9, that's under 55,000. Fire equipment capital reserve fund.
I would like to change and leave the part where the source of funds is equal to fund balance. I think that should come from taxation.
Yeah, I don't, the reason that I put these in here before is that I felt the fund balance was too high. But since now we've agreed to take the money out of the fund balance for purchase of property at this point, I do fall back to what Mr. Tappan has said, and I agree. Okay?
And if we can do that with the other two, that would be appropriate.
Yes,
I think, just thinking in terms of, my thinking in terms of this is, I finally converted you over to getting it down a little bit, but
Yes, you
I'm
have,
pulling
after all
you
this
back a
time.
little bit, because I think, looking down the road, if these two warrant articles that we discussed, 5 and 6, go forward, and we move forward with something in terms of that, when the town goes out to get a bond for that, one of the things they're gonna look at is in terms of our financial status, in terms of how we're doing. And right now, we have an AA3 rating, which is pretty good.
Pretty good.
But as that fund balance gets drawn down, that rating goes down, which means we're gonna pay more money to borrow money. So I think if we keep it up, I think this is fine in terms of the 200,000 or whatever it is for the article for the church property. But if we keep it a little bit higher, when we go out for that bond, we get a higher rating, which means we're paying less interest. After that, then we can do whatever we want, because we've already got the bond, and I'm not gonna change it. So that's my thought process in terms of just looking forward. So, save the town some money, hopefully, for 20 years, or if we do a bond, which sounds like we probably do, but it'll save money for the town over those 20 years.
And it's rare when these articles do not pass. Okay. No, I'm in agreement. I don't think the argument's been made.
Okay.
Mr. Brown?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Let's move on to Article 10. Same thing, right?
Same issue.
Yeah, go ahead. Article 11. This is just very straightforward. Okay. Article,
I'm not in favor of 12.
I agree. So we have to make a recommendation on that?
Well, I just need to know whether you're striking it from the warrant.
I propose you strike it.
I agree.
It's not a petition, correct?
No.
You strike it. Article 13,
Same as 9 and 10, remove the source of funds. It comes directly from taxation.
okay. Article 14,
I'm okay with that one.
I'm fine too. If somebody else, if anybody sees a hand, let me know. Article 15, approved benefits,
I'm okay with that one.
I'm fine. Article 16,
I'm fine with that
transfer
one.
station, fine. Article 17,
Okay.
Article 18,
Can I ask a question? We're due for evaluation when? 3 years from now?
Well, we did it in 2016, so
So 2021,
21.
so about 3 years. Okay.
we're good on that one. Article 19, it should be straightforward. Article 20, I think we discussed this last time, and Mr. Hunt made a presentation. Article 21,
Yes, please.
please come forward.
Bill Donnelly, Conservation Commission. What I'm passing out includes as the first page an aerial photograph showing the property in question. What you'll see is the bright green area represents land in the town forest that is currently protected by an easement. And you'll notice a pie-shaped piece of woodland with the transfer station to the north and Mastway School to the east. That is the 7.49 acres that we are requesting putting under easement. If you turn to the second page, you'll see the results of a survey done that identified and specifically located the large vernal pool that we have heard about over the years behind Mastway School in the town forest, but currently unprotected by an easement. You'll notice in that drawing that the vernal pool was delineated by Jamie Long. He is a wetland scientist, biologist, who, if you'll turn to the next page, as part of a report that he wrote for the Conservation Commission in 2009, that was both locating and evaluating this vernal pool, I've highlighted a few points that I believe are particularly relevant. In the results of his survey, the area in question was determined to be a vernal pool. The vernal pool would also be rated as, quote, highly productive, close quotes. And down in the next paragraph, the pool area is part of an isolated wetland system. So it's not single vernal pool there, but there are other less important, smaller pools, but nonetheless having biological value. And then the final point on his report that I'd like to highlight, the surrounding upland habitat, 750-foot radius, consists mainly of undisturbed mature forest and serves to provide excellent habitat during the non-breeding season. It is the opinion of NHSC, that was the consulting firm, that this surrounding upland habitat is a main contributor to the productivity and diversity of the vernal pool. So it's not just the pool itself, it is the surrounding habitat. And again, flipping a page, you will see roughly drawn 2 circles representing two sizable vernal pools on the town forest property. The one we're interested in here this evening is the one above to the north of the other. And you'll notice the 750-foot radius drawn includes the recycling center, includes a portion of Mass Place School, includes a portion of the Lee Congregational Church. And the 750-foot radius is not wholly, it doesn't have to be protected in its entirety, but the strong recommendation of biologists is that at least 75% of it be protected. So on the next page, you'll see critical terrestrial habitat, 750 feet from the edge of the pool. Less than 25% developed area is a recommended guideline. So we've already got development in the transfer station, in the Mass Place School and schoolyard, and in the Lee Church that take a portion of this 75-foot radius. So in my estimation, we're left with a piece of property that really has no room from a biological conservation perspective for further development. So I'd be glad to take questions if there are any.
Comments or questions from the board?
Mr. Hum?
Yes. I'm good.
Is there anyone else from the commission or from the public who would like to speak? Catherine?
Who's in control of the meeting?
It's all right. We'll give Mr. Hum a little latitude at this point. Since he does a lot of work for the town of Lee on a volunteer basis. Only once. Okay, go ahead.
Catherine Fisher, I live on 13 Allens Ave, and for the last 30 years that pool and the surrounding area has been my classroom. I've taken hundreds, thousands of students out there. I've met grad students who've done their PhD research there because it's such a productive and fantastic jewel of a place. And I've met lots of townspeople too, because where this pool is located, it almost is the face of the town forest. This is where people walk through all the time. I meet them pausing by the pool, and it would just be a shame to develop it. I don't know if there's another school on the planet that has a vernal pool out right in their backyard where the kids can walk and get there in plenty of time to really explore it and get to know it. I've had so many students bring their parents and teach them. I just really hope that you'll find it in your hearts to save this little parcel. Thank you.
Anybody else would like to speak to this issue?
Are you going to speak?
Yeah, well, he's in charge, not me, so.
That's correct.
He can recognize you.
Thank you. I'm glad you figured that one out. You please come forward.
I would like, if Scott was going, if Selectman Bugby was going to say something, I'd like to hear from him.
Oh.
Okay, I'm going to recognize Selectman Bugby
I
at this
feel
time.
very important now.
We'll find out.
One of the things I'd like us to consider is, and maybe I do have a question for Mr. Hum. It's my understanding that state law provides protection for vernal pools anyways. Is this true? Yes or no?
Theoretically.
Theoretically.
All right, hold on. I got a hand up over here. Come on.
Well, it's not theoretical, it's in the DES regulations. I can look up and I can give you all the
Thank you.
references if you
So,
want to hear them.
Proceed.
So I guess based on that, this particular parcel and other places out here they're already covered. There's nothing the town can do with it. The only thing I'd like us to consider is on Article number 5, we're proposing to buy the church property, and the church property abuts this easement. It would be nice if the town in the future, if this particular section over here is buildable, that the town keep that open and not put an easement on it. Not necessarily the vernal pool, but just a small section out here. We don't know what the town needs are going to be. This was never a possibility before the church, made this particular thing available. So I'd like us to maybe hold off Because right now, town's not gonna do anything with it anyways. State law says you can't do anything with it in terms of developing, so I think it's safe. But I think I'd like us to wait and see if this passes and we do require this church property to take a look at this small section back here and maybe exclude that from this particular course easement. So I am suggesting that maybe we wait for a year until we find out who owned the church property and then maybe take a look at that and take a look in terms of what's buildable out back there, if anything. Maybe there's nothing.
Mr. Hahn?
If you look at the aerial photo on the first page of the packet I handed out, you'll see a scale, the bottom left-hand corner. That represents 200 feet. So if you multiply that by almost 4, you're then getting a 750-foot radius. And regardless of where you locate the vernal pool in the wooded area, there is nothing left to be developed.
Mr. Tappan?
John Tappan, 187 Stepping Stones Road, and also a member of the Town Center Vision Committee. And I brought this question up at a meeting of the Town Center Vision Committee because one of our responsibilities is to foresee questions that might come up about the plan that the selectmen are proposing, including the purchase of this parcel. And when you look at the drawing of the area that's proposed to be purchased and this area that is excluded from the easement, there is a 290-foot, approximately 290-foot common boundary. So it is, I would expect that at a deliberative session or some questions, some other forum, people would be asking, if you're buying this land, how do you know that all of this parcel B has to go into conservation easement? The Town Center Vision Committee is not at all questioning, or we were not at all questioning, whether or not it was desirable to preserve this parcel. And there was certainly no plan to build a ring road around the vernal pool. The question is entirely whether this needs to be brought up now. The parcel isn't going anywhere, the town owns it, the town's not going to try to sell it, and the town is not going to have any money to build roads on it in the next year. So our question, looking at trying to achieve a goal that the town has been working on for much more than a decade, we could not see a really strong reason for muddying the waters in some people's minds by putting this conservation easement on it now. Now, we realize that this is really, could be perceived as a slap in the face to the people that have worked on this for so long. And it's very unfortunate that the timing has just hit, that they want to do this year at the same time that we have this opportunity to buy the church land. And so, as a member of the Town Center Vision Committee, I am asking that this be postponed. It may well be that there is developable land here, and it's 500 square feet, and it's not worth doing anything with. Maybe it's a quarter of an acre or a half an acre. Maybe it's more. The hand-drawn map that you have, if it's the one that I saw previously with the 750-foot radius, those are not accurately drawn by a surveyor. And I think that to be able to, in the future, confidently answer why all of this land is going into easement now, it's appropriate to have that kind of accuracy in the drawing. So I'm asking you to postpone this, and I think that it can be postponed because the town owns the land, the town's not gonna sell it, and the town is certainly not going to build on it in the next year. That's all.
Thank you.
My thought is, I'll share this with you, in terms of this is the map that's there, but if we're going to have somebody come in and survey this part, because we're gonna have to do that anyway for a lot line adjustment, it's contiguous. So just have them do this particular section as well, at the same time when they're out there, so.
Thank you.
Got it?
Please.
I have friends in low places. Vernal pools. Vernal pools, yes.
Ann Tappan, Conservation Commission. I'm speaking reluctantly. I am the culprit. I am the one who brought up questions about whether or not the timing was right for this. I am in complete agreement with everything that has been said by the commission, by the school teacher about the pool. I have a short series of remarks about this in case I felt I had to say something. Protecting the vernal pools and the surrounding upland buffer in this excluded area is the right thing to do. I am well aware of the life cycle and seasonal habitat requirements of vernal pool indicator species, and I am familiar with the highly productive pools in this parcel. In fact, I was present when Jamie Long did his report that you have a piece of. I am not a certified wetland scientist, but I did write the first edition of Identification and Documentation of Vernal Pools in New Hampshire. That's now in its third edition. I am in support of placing an easement on this currently excluded parcel. However, and we did have a discussion at the conservation meeting about this, in light of the possibility of purchasing 5.4 acres from the church and realizing that this purchase would connect the present town parcel to this excluded parcel, I suggested to the Conservation Commission at the January meeting that we revisit the timing of this warrant article. I suggested that we take a step back and take a detailed look at the parcel. Perhaps it's possible to carve out a conservation easement area that will adequately protect vernal pools and wetlands and also provide some additional land for the town. Perhaps considerations for the bog, the pools, and the wetland complex leaves little land appropriate for other uses. Getting the area mapped and documented would provide a strong case for the protection provided by a conservation easement and avoid having to revisit these issues in the future. Next year, have a warrant article to put a conservation easement on the parcel which has been delineated by survey and documentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Please.
The recommendation to delay is ironic because this has been delayed, not by you, but by others for the last couple of years. The idea has been floating and has received a great deal of support, not only in the Conservation Commission, but in the Mastway School community. And for some very good reasons. Timing was not good last year because of the Powder Major acquisition. It wasn't good the prior year, and I'm off the top of my head not clear on why that was at the time. But it just pains me to think of yet again this being put on the back burner. So I would encourage you to recommend its inaction.
Can I ask a question in terms of, and there's no cost to do this? Would there be legal
The
costs?
cost is gonna be, the costs are fairly minimal as I understand it, and the costs are gonna be borne by the Conservation Commission's budget.
Shouldn't
their
that be listed in the
operating
article?
budget. Yeah, we went back and forth on that. You're not asking,
For money.
well, it's like putting forward a warrant article where you need permission to do the thing, but the money's coming out of the operating budget.
Okay.
You
Well,
know,
I'm just thinking in terms
yeah,
of,
do you
if
know?
I'm seeing this cold, which
Yeah,
many people are
yeah,
gonna see,
yeah.
well, geez, you're gonna do this, all the other easements we've done, there's been money associated. Maybe we
Yeah.
say this, can we just say, maybe in the blue sky maybe or something, that
The
this?
funds are coming out of the operating budget?
Yeah, because that's a question, because we've done easements in the past and it's always, they're never free.
Right.
There's always some cost.
But there's
on it.
usually well, this is different because we're not acquiring an easement, we're giving an
Giving
easement.
easement.
But I think there would still be costs for.
Yeah, there's some transactional costs. As I said, the Conservation Commission's intent is to take it out of their operating budget.
Do you have an estimate, just for curiosity?
Somewhere between 3,000 and 5,000. And there's been an offer on the part of the Mastway community to make some donations to help the town do this. And I don't know specifically from the Forest Society what costs they envision, including this parcel in the overall easement,
Thank you.
but certainly small.
I saw her hand before, please.
Catherine Fisher, 13 Allens Ave. I don't have much to add except that Mastway kids have been donating to a fund to get this land protected for a number of years. So we have a little pile of piggy bank, mostly piggy bank money, that's reached the astronomical sum of $389 so far. But there is more coming on the way, and individuals have approached me wanting to donate to get this land protected. So while it won't be very expensive, and the Conservation Commission does have the funds to do it, there's a lot of, many people in the community who would like to contribute as well and will. So, thank you.
Thank you very much. Please.
John Tappan, 187 Stepping Stones Road. Just a simple comment about how long people have been working on this. I think it's important for governments, when situations change, that they respond to them. And just because you've been on a plan for a long time doesn't mean that you stay on that plan when the situation changes. And the situation on the ground has changed. And that, I think, is the valid reason for postponement.
Thank you.
May I say one more thing?
Got to come to the podium.
As Bill pointed out, the situation has changed year after year, and we've always postponed it because it just wasn't, it was clutter up the warrant articles, or it just wasn't a good time. What doesn't change is that the surrounding land is, a lot of it isn't suitable for building. It's a very steep slope. The critters that use the vernal pool are all in that surrounding land. What's left of it, what is encroached on by Mastway and by the transfer station. And, you know, I think once, you know, even you get somebody out there to survey, the answer is going to be the same. You know, what's left of the land surrounding the pool is where the critters are. And if you start to develop it, you're going to start to chip away at the productivity of the pool. So I'd argue that it's time to do it now.
Thank you. Please.
Mary Ellen Webb from Earl Drive. As a voter who doesn't study this like most of you have done, I don't feel like that would muddy the water. I feel like that is something that, even if I wasn't a teacher, that I would be wanting to do for my community. I wouldn't be, I mean, I definitely want to do the town thing too, but I don't feel like that would clash. I would want to see both. Thank you.
Thank you. In the back, please.
Paul Gazowski, 46 Lamprey Lane. A major rewind on town center history. And those who've been with it for a very long time will remember the original proposal was to, what was the name of the property? It was the Bales property. Was to build a town hall on the Bales property and adjoin, and that proposal encountered the vernal pools, and that proposal was abandoned, as it should have been, very properly. Just comment on this, and if this moves forward, I would recommend to the commission to somehow improve those drawings, particularly the one with the 750-foot radius, and because the clearer that information is, the easier it will be for voters to understand, and assuming there will be a presentation. What I'm looking at right now is a sketch, and that doesn't help me at all. I'm having trouble understanding what's going on. So there are properties and lot lines, and then there's this scribed radius, which may or may not be accurate. And just one final comment, I assume this is backland for the parcel that the town currently owns, and the parcel, the church property that the town hopefully will acquire. And with the library and historical society and the science interest and the marriage of all those things together in the school and the church, there are probably some fine opportunities for educational learning and soft impact facilities, if you will, maybe things that don't impact the process. So, I respect the process. I consider myself a naturalist, and the timing on this is a bit awkward. So the presentation needs to be very clear and accurate. Thank you.
Well, two things. One, does anybody know where's the Boy Scout camp out back there? Is that on this particular parcel, or is it on the church parcel?
It's on the church.
On the church parcel.
My second thing is, I'm still confused. If DES says that we cannot develop vernal pools, why are we putting an easement on something that's already protected from development? Why are we spending $3,000 to $5,000 to protect something that's already protected by state agencies or state law? I think I'm questioning that. I'm hearing two different things out here, so I don't know if we can find out.
Well, I'd like to leave it on for now until we find out.
Okay. Can we, I don't know who's the best.
Mr. Hum, you got a comment?
I do. Anyone who has followed the protection of wetlands in New Hampshire by DES knows that there is variance upon variance upon variance upon variance. Why do we protect this with a conservation easement? To prohibit that kind of nibbling away.
But we own it,
But we own
If
it.
we own it, so
so we control it.
we control it, so
I mean, I would understand the concern if a private party owned it, you might want to get an easement on it, but anyway.
One never knows what town government will do.
It might be this board in the future decides to sell that piece of land.
It could be.
Yeah. Being on
Next year.
the planning board for many, many years, and chairman of that board, one of the other members who happened to be a civil engineer had said that no matter what land, if it's wet or not, somebody will build on it because laws always change. So now it's the time to protect it. So I want to hold on to this till we get some more information, so I want to leave it as it is.
Thank you.
who is directly supplying the information?
What information are we getting?
What would you like to get?
I would like to find out, well, in terms of, based on Mr. Hump's comment, I would think the law is the law. If the law says you can't build in vernal pool areas, I would think that's absolute. But if you can get a variance, you can't.
Most likely. Well, the other issue is that town government's change, as brought up. We might feel this way now, but maybe there'll be different selectmen in 5 years. So I want to leave it on there for now. Okay.
1 year.
You have a hand up?
One year.
All right, well, we still got time to discuss it till next meeting. Okay, let's move on from that particular one about Article 22. This is about the solar power purchase agreement.
I like the idea, I don't like it put on this building's roof. I'd like us to explore possibly putting that someplace around, just based on terms of, I'm comfortable with putting holes in the roof. That's like counterproductive to me.
Well, you and I are in agreement, I brought that up last time.
So I would like us to explore doing something else, and I'm not sure, this warrant article is just asking for the ability to grant an easement or license on town property, that's all it's asking
The
for.
select board does not have the authority to enter into the agreement necessary
Okay.
without the approval of the voters.
Which agreement, though?
PPA,
Buyout thing?
the power purchase agreement.
Mhm.
Or actually, it's the permission to put this on town property, but we don't own it.
I see.
Yeah, we don't own the equipment.
Because I think
They used to be called leases.
now that,
Now they changed the language to try to make it easier.
well, I think the information we're provided is very simplified. And I think we need to do a further analysis on this, because just based on the limited analysis I've done, it might be possible to have the town save more money if we outright bought it initially.
Right, and they already, I think the Energy
So-
Committee has already
Yeah, I'd like to know what
looked
that
at that,
is.
and they're meeting again next week,
Okay.
and I think you'll get your answers out of that meeting, close to it.
When next week?
If you go,
Sharon
well,
she just changed the 22nd.
if you keep this warrant article on, that leaves the options open.
Yep.
You
But
could
we don't have to
you
do
could
it.
still buy it outright, you could
Oh, we
still.
can't with this?
Yeah.
Because this leads me to believe that.
It'd be us putting something on our own, it'd be like putting a garage on the building. We have permit, we can do that.
Okay.
The problem
So it's-
is that as this is initially
Mhm.
described, we do not own the solar array.
Okay. But the last paragraph there, or the last sentence, with the option to purchase. So really, it could be either or.
Right,
Yes.
right, gotta do the numbers.
Okay.
Well, if the board decided that they didn't want to enter into any kind of lease agreement or license, or you just want to buy the solar array and put it on the building or near the building,
Yeah.
you can do that. You don't need the voters' approval to do that.
Okay.
But if you don't know what you're gonna do right now, this gives you the option
Okay.
to.
All the options are gonna be looked at, because we need to see if we can, if we don't go on the roof, we can put more panels up, and we can offset more.
If it's on the ground.
Okay, right.
Right. I'm good with that.
We're good? All right, let's move on from that was Article 22, Article 23. This is about advocating for wind energy conversion.
That was a petition warrant article. so-
Someone here to speak to the petition warrant article? Number 23.
It has to be.
Okay.
Well, I don't know. Chuck Cox, 36 Captain Smith Emerson Road.
Thank you.
I didn't write this, I signed this petition, and I think we had probably others here who signed it. We had, 4 in our family that have signed this, and I think this is important for the future of Lee and all of New Hampshire, that we follow these, this energy, producing this energy without destroying the environment. And I think that this is, again, it's asking for us the governor to study this and to put a task force to work on this. I've been to some of the presentations on this, and the engineering and the potential has certainly been well demonstrated. And so I think it certainly is something that's not going to be just wasted energy from the selectmen writing a letter to the governor. So I would certainly think, and I guess it's not noted here, but this is by petition, I
That's
guess,
correct.
so that would be noted on here. And
Once a petition warrant article has the authorized signatures, then it's a warrant article.
That's it. So it doesn't make any difference with what a selectman think at this point.
Right, yeah.
Thank you anyways for explaining.
Just clarification, it says request at selectmen, so they can request it, that doesn't mean we have to send it.
That's right.
So, but
That's
probably
it.
should.
You got plenty of something we could talk about.
But I think, is the wording of the warrant article something that came from some group that sent it out to all the different towns?
I believe someone had drafted that, I don't know just who, but there are other towns that have the same thing. I expect the wording is the same.
Yeah, I can imagine they have all this in word. All right, Article 24, that looks pretty straightforward contingency, right? Okay. We're gonna continue. Yeah.
Budget public hearing.
Town administrator says we should talk about budget.
Yeah.
Since it's a budget
This is
hearing.
budget public hearing.
All right. How would you like to proceed? Then we went through this in detail. Do you want to bring
Well, just one thing that I want to suggest to the select board, we are required by statute to update the tax maps every year. And we used to have a line item in the assessing budget for that, but somewhere along the way it dropped off. So I'm recommending that we put a line item for tax maps in the assessing budget, $1,200.
It's an annual number?
Yes.
Do I hear something?
People in the audience were confused.
No, they're not confused.
As you can see, obviously, we put in the wage adjustment figures based on prior action from the select board. And
There should be some money left though, right?
there, well, when you say money left,
Well, the spreadsheet, we didn't use the whole 50,000. There should be some left.
it came to 49 and change.
Oh, well.
Remember that line that did get computed for some
All
reason?
right,
But
okay.
if you want to go to the last page,
Oh, last page.
you'll notice that there's a difference of about $2,000. That came about because there were some wages in the wage line that were actually higher than what the ultimate adjusted wage ended up being.
Okay.
So we, the finance director, finance officer and I put in the calculation from the wage adjustment spreadsheet.
Okay.
Mr. Brown, you got anything? No. Mr. Bugby, then I'll open up the floor.
There's two things that we will provide information about in terms of salary adjustments for the treasurer and ourselves.
Oh, yeah.
Did you want to make any adjustments to those lines?
Well, I think my salary should be higher than both of theirs, so.
Okay, I'm out of here.
I'm only kidding.
I know you're only kidding.
I just think based on the information that we're provided, that we could probably, or I would recommend that we increase it.
You have a recommendation?
Well, I can recommend it for myself, I don't know about you two, so.
Oh, it's a merit increase, huh?
It's a merit increase.
Self-inflicted merit increase.
Self-inflicted, ooh, that doesn't
That's a
sound
nice
nice.
way to put it.
But just based on the information that the town administrator provided us in terms of people, excuse me, not people, towns in the same population range as us, we're low. So I would suggest that we increase it.
What's your suggestion?
Well, for myself,
No,
just for everybody? No. I'm thinking that, because the ranges go from, I don't know if I want to even work in the town of Northampton. They pay them $1. So,
Northampton.
yeah, Northampton
We don't even get paid $1.
paid $1.
How often?
A year, once a year,
Once a year, that's it? Purely voluntary.
purely voluntary. I think the highest one was 4,500 a year, that's way too much. But they seem to be in the $2,500 to $3,000 range. So I would suggest something in that particular range, maybe.
So right now it's at 2,000, right?
Correct. And it hasn't been increased for, I think, at least 5 years. I think that was the last time it got changed. It got changed from 1,500, and that was at 1,500 for like 15 years or something. So, but just based on what other select body members get in different towns our size, it should be increased something.
I think 2,500 is fair.
25.
So for a total of 7,500?
You have it. What was the other issue?
The treasurer's stipend. She also provided us information in terms of what other treasurers would make. And in terms of history of this one, back when Mr. Corey was our treasurer, he provided all the financial statements, did all the financial transactions, and when he passed away, it got taken over by Jenny Alley. She did it for many years. And Ben's been doing it for many years too. But I don't remember when Joanne, the finance officer, started doing a lot of the reconciliations and things like that. But I think a lot of the work that the treasurer used to do is now done by the finance officer. So I would recommend us to take a look in terms of what other treasurers make and reconcile that with the diminished duties that that particular position is doing now. So I would suggest that we reduce it.
That we won't.
Reduce it. Right now it's at 52.
5,116.
Okay. So I recommend that we take a look in terms of the numbers, and I think the big thing is the town administrator also forwarded us some responses that she had received, I assume received from different towns that do this. And I think the big difference is who does the financial reconciliations and statements. If it's the treasurer, they should get compensated for all that work, but if the treasurer doesn't do those, I don't think they should be compensated for those particular things. The other thing I would want us to do is in terms of, before we make a change, that it be whenever the current treasurer's term ends, don't change it in the middle. I would want to have it start when the new term starts. And I'm not sure, I think it's next year, not this year.
Yeah, it's not this year.
I think it's next year. So in terms of the impact of the budget, it would be just that quarter part, the last quarter of the next fiscal year, so.
So what do you think is over at $4,000?
Well, if you take a look, I'm thinking that we should probably be in the $3,000 range, just based on what those particular towns that have treasurers that don't do the financial statements. Stratton's one of them, they make 3,000. Auburn's another one, they make 2,500. So just in terms of what we got responses, because not all of them said what exactly they do. And those are the only two that I could match up. So I wouldn't go for the low one, I'd go for the higher one. So that would be, what, 7,500 a quarter? Just like, I think he gets paid quarterly, correct?
I think he gets paid more often than
Okay, well, 3,000 a year versus the 51, whatever it is.
that. 5,160. So are we making it 3,000?
I just proposed, I don't know.
I want to go about 3,500. We'll go between the two.
And Mr. Brown's gonna
He's
go
gonna
in the
break
middle.
the time, man.
Well, I'd like to know a little more, but I think 3,500 would be.
There we go. Let's do that.
I just want to remind the board of action that was taken at the last meeting relative to some personnel issues, just so we're all clear as to what changes got made. The budget in front of you right now includes funding for the 8th police officer. It includes funding to move the building inspector from part-time to full-time.
Yes.
And it does not include funding to move the librarian assistant from part-time to full-time.
Okay.
I think that's where it was.
That's not how I remembered it, but I was told differently.
So how do you remember it?
I remember you approved all three. But that's not what I was told by the people who make the documentation, so.
Listen to the tapes.
If the tapes were the tapes.
The tail of the tape.
So at this time, are there any other proposed changes to the budget?
Don't take any comments from the floor at this time. I'll give an opportunity to public. Go ahead.
Karen Rosowski, Lamprey Lane, library trustee. The library trustees are in favor of moving our assistant librarian to a full-time position. This person already receives retirement benefits, and under our library policy, she is considered to be full-time at 35 hours per week. Now, one of the things that we need and we really want to have is we want her to be able to buy the town's health, all of the health benefits. She has no health benefits and she's gonna need them. And as a result of that, we could keep her at 35 hours per week, or we could increase it to 40. It would be a savings to the town if we kept her at 35 and we could deal with that. But we thought also we were gonna talk with you in non-public session.
It's all right, you're still gonna talk about his non-public session.
Okay, good.
Thank you. Anything else?
Those are the only two things that I have. I don't know.
That's all I
don't
have.
have anything.
Oh, good. All right, well,
My recommendation would be to continue this public hearing to the meeting on the 29th.
you agree?
22nd.
22nd. Today. Sorry, I'm a week ahead of myself. Sorry.
The 22nd, right?
I was already asked
You got
to
that?
forward to the 29th, but yeah.
Sure.
22nd, yes, sorry. It's the
It's the
22nd.
same, is that the same time as the energy meeting?
Yes. it
Yes.
is. Well, the other thing is,
Oh,
one of the,
during the morning.
are they meeting during the morning?
They're meeting at 10 as far as I know.
Because that was the other thing in terms of logistically, can you guys get that information about warrant article number 20, whatever it is?
I don't
Ray,
know,
before.
I don't know, I have to see. I know that they've been working to gather it. Sharon's been sick. David's been sick. They moved it, so I'll have to try and find out if we can come up with a position and have the backup for
Do we
it.
need a vote or we can move it?
The other thing is the amount of moving the parish house. I should have that this Thursday, so as soon as I get it, I'll send it to the town administrator who can distribute it to you two. So to have that information as well.
Anyways, I'm gonna move, I move to continue the review of the, the budget meeting and warrant to January 22nd.
might I suggest?
Go ahead.
Move to continue tonight's public budget hearing to 20.
January 22nd. They check wrote down real big this time. Shall we hear a second?
I second what she said.
Yeah, that's right. All in favor? Also close the meeting for tonight.
20 seconds at 10 a.m.
Okay, next item, business, Julie Gover, town administrator.
So we are in the process of gathering information and putting together the town report. And wanted to ask the board about doing what we have in the past called in memoriam, which is to honor and recognize prominent town residents that have passed away. And there are 5 names that we are suggesting. And they disappeared, even though the piece of paper was in front of me earlier tonight. Thank you. So it's Dick Wyrick, Mel Jenkins, Jay Grumbling, Bill Hensey, and then Harold Ward. And so if the board would like to do this, I guess we just maybe want to talk a little bit about the format and then whom we might get to write up the piece for the town report.
We've done multiple people previous years. I don't know if we've ever had 5. But I would suggest that we put in a little picture and a blurb about what their accomplishments were. I don't know how many pages that is, maybe 2 pages, I don't know, whatever fits. But I think these people need to be recognized for what they did for the town during their lifetime.
The page count doesn't matter, so.
No, it's
Do you want to ask the Heritage Commission to do that, to provide the write-up?
They're in the back of the room if you want to ask them, at least the important people on the Heritage
And
Commission.
then I guess I would ask
You too, isn't it?
the town secretary to let us know what the deadline's going to be. I know it's soon.
No.
So within the next couple of weeks.
Do I have anybody who's volunteering in the back of the room?
Bill's already done a beautiful one on Dick.
Yes,
I think
absolutely.
that's all.
That's true. That's true. You mean, the Heritage Commission could put something together.
Okay.
But
I was
so
thinking
2 weeks.
Yeah.
2 weeks.
I mean, we'll let you know what the deadline really is, but right now I'm thinking it's within the next 2 weeks.
Okay.
Well, I know we got pictures of Dick. Is it okay to use the Dick with the hat picture or not?
It's not proprietary to me.
Well, I just. Okay.
Yeah, it'd be nice to have a picture and a paragraph or something.
Yeah.
It's about what they did for the town,
Yes, exactly,
as opposed to what they did overall.
exactly.
Okay. How do we research that?
Thank you. Did you read those names again? I just wanted.
Dick Wyrick, Mel Jenkins, Jay Grumbling, Bill Hensey, and Harold Ward.
Kenzie.
Okay, thank you.
Kenzie, I don't know who that is.
He was on your
I can
advisory
send it to
committee
Liz.
for years and years.
Who he was?
Yeah.
Next item is the letter, the confirmation letter for the New Hampshire Division of Historical Resources.
Putting the town hall.
It's listing the town hall and the tool shed with the tramp room on the New Hampshire State, on the New Hampshire State Register.
I move to accept the listing that Lee Town Hall will lead tool shed with tramp room on the New Hampshire State Register.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye.
The The freight depot will be next month. The freight depot will be next month. Next month.
Does this make us eligible for grant money?
When you sign that, yes, now you do.
Now, does it make us eligible?
Now, we're going to do it.
That's not right.
Thank you, let's move on. You have a comment.
I just heard the question being asked, once you sign that, is that the last step? Are you now eligible? But there is another step.
There's one more step.
The committee meets in April.
Yes.
So after you sign that to say, yes, consider us, the committee meets in April to actually put those buildings on the register.
Thank you very much for the information. Let's move on to the next item. It's a motion to, I move to accept the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Discussion. Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye. Aye, motion carries. Yeah. You have a pen?
I do.
Okay, just want to make sure.
Oh, do you need one, John?
No, I got my own.
Oh, it's green.
No, you don't have to sign for it. You don't have to sign.
We don't have to sign it?
Well, nope.
Oh, I listen, glad you paid attention.
Can I ask a question while you're signing that? I thought we fixed this particular problem. We've got,
I would like to speak with the board.
about this? Okay.
You want to forget something?
Sorry. I signed you up for work.
See you tomorrow night.
No, yeah, those two.
Good night now.
This goes in here, but do you want to take the rest of this?
Okay. Should have passed those over sooner.
Have we made a decision?
What's this stuff here? Chairman Bugby.
He says, what's this?
Look at that. Look at that.
Okay, it does say that.
What does it say?
I can't sign this, it's Chairman
We
Bugby.
can't keep on top of the department heads continuing to use old forms.
I've been promoted again.
Yeah. Or demoted.
Ooh, that depends on how you look at it, yep.
We gotta start reading this stuff.
I need to read this stuff before you pass on to it. Where's my gavel?
Yeah, where's the gavel?
Give me that glass of water. I need this when I go talk to the library.
Done.
Just one page. This one's sideways, I guess, for a reason. This one's on the X-ray. Just one? Usually there's 2 or 3.
No, you already signed it.
Okay.
Yeah, they are. What do I have to do?
It's been hung up.
See, that's why he lost control of the meeting, he didn't have his gavel.
That's right, I didn't have my whacker. My whacker.
What that is, with all the sticky signs.
We good? Anything else? I move to enter into non-public session, New Hampshire RSA 91-A:311A personnel, 3 of them, and D, church. Do I need a second?
Second.
Roll call, please, Mr. Pugley?
Yes.
Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. LaCroix, yes, motion carries. Thank you. Okay. Miscellaneous business?
Just an update from the TCVC. We put an article about the town hall's condition in last week's e-crier. This week will be the library. The week after will be the other buildings that are included in town center. The 4th week will be the proposal, and the 5th week will be the church property purchase. We are also working with the Boy Scouts to see if we can have them do some handouts at the transfer station.
Oh, good.
Looking at possibly doing a documentary, very short, not Hollywood quality. And there is a poster in the library for the town hall, and as we progress, those will be rotated out for those different ones, same ones in the e-crier. And we'll be doing a presentation at the delivery session, hopefully. I've requested it from the moderator. I have not heard back, so that's on tap. But all those posters that are in the library will also be at the delivery session, so hopefully that will be a piece of information for people. I don't think I'm forgetting anything else, am I? TCVC.
I have a couple things from the planning board. You probably heard about them, a couple already, is that there's discussion at this point of consultation about putting some condos across from the racetrack, and I guess there's about 100 acres of farm, 100 acres there, but a lot of it's rocky and full of, so I'm not sure. It's just a consultation at this point. There's karate school that'll probably going in at the Joy Dance Studio. They're gonna use some time up at 125.
Whereabouts?
Where the Kawasaki place used to be.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Where?
Joy of Dance is in there already.
I'm lost. Where?
Yeah, it's up, it's going north.
Going
by
north
the
past-
Barrington line.
Yeah.
By the
By
Barrington
Toy
line?
Manufacturing,
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah,
just
yeah,
before
okay.
that.
By
Just
Toy
this way.
Manufacturing?
where they sell corn out there in the summertime.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that
They
place.
used to sell
Oh,
used
I've
furniture
seen them
place.
redoing the building.
Right,
Yeah.
and now it's the Joy of Dance. She does live
Yes.
dance, ballet, and everything else,
Yeah.
but now there's gonna be a person Tuesday and Thursday night for adults. They teach fire people and police people, special type of stuff, karate at this point. And it's also tight, if she needs the space, she'll push him out, if not, he can stay there. Also, there was a facilities director that came from West River School District. They want to add on to Mastway School. And it's up on the right-hand corner. The issue that affects us is they want to put a road in there, a temporary road to fuel that side. That means cutting down a bunch of trees by the tennis courts. And the Board of Selectmen is the only people that can approve removal of those trees. And he brought out a couple of possible paths. So he's going to have to come to this board sooner or later. You know, they don't want to go through the traditional parking lot around the back, because a lot of stuff will be done during school time. It'll make too much noise, so they want to go by the tennis courts. And they do have, the school actually is,
How much do they? where's the-
well, that's what they're gonna discuss, or they might talk about coming in behind the ball field with a temporary
Well,
road.
that's our property, isn't
That
it?
is, well, it's town property, that's what they'd like.
They want two things from the town,
Mhm.
from the town of Lee. One, they want us to cut down a bunch of, they're cutting down a lot of trees. They're cutting down, what,
Themselves.
like 25 trees or
It's
something?
in their setback, yeah.
They're cutting down trees and they want us to cut down trees. And they want to use our property for the construction.
Yeah.
But that's not even the thing that I find the most, this isn't gonna be a warrant article.
No,
They're doing, it's $1 million plus, $1.5 million.
1.3 million.
It's a lease purchase.
They're doing it out of their operating budget.
Yeah, it's taken
Well, that's
right.
what I complained to them about.
Yeah, they got the money.
No, that was about
Yeah.
the other thing.
Oh, it's the same thing. It's the same program. Same program.
This is
With
their,
Siemens, it's the same
this
program.
is their capital budget. They say they got money in their capital budget. They're just gonna take it right out of there.
It's a lease purchase.
No,
Siemens-
they're-
Siemens,
Siemens
That's
pays
the
for
en-
it.
Yeah, but
and-
that's the energy improvements, not the addition, not the 4
Oh, I'm
classrooms.
pretty sure it's yes, it's a capital improvement they're getting through Siemens.
Because they're replacing.
as a
So they're
contractor?
It's
leasing?
kind of like the thing that they're proposing for the solar array. It's the same thing, it's the same idea.
That's how they're building 4 classrooms?
Yeah, Siemens is paying for it all, and they're leasing, the payments are coming through a lease purchase with Siemens. So after a period of time, they'll be paid off.
Why
So they're
can't we just-
bypassing-
Why can't we build the town hall that way?
Because we're not sleazy. Remember, I just said that, we're not
Strike
sleazy.
that from the records.
I think it's very, he said he would say it in the deliberative session, I don't remember if he did, I don't think he did. But yeah, that's a way around it. It's very, I don't think it's, right.
So the issue is that they say they're trying to balance Mohara and Master White. The number of students, they still see increasing number of students coming into the district. The other thing is they want to extend the principal's office towards the front. But they feel, when you walk in,
Yeah.
they want to bring that forward and build that out and add to the principal's office because it's tied to threats. So they can see if people come with guns and stuff in the parking lots right now. But that's supposed to be a grant, and if they don't get the grant, they're not gonna do it. But it's supposed to be all come through grant money.
So they'll get advance notice.
Yeah.
Because the
So
people
what stops the
wouldn't
gunman-
come through the woods in the back of the building?
Well,
And come in through one of the doors that are propped open so the teachers can get back in and play time? You ever
what can I
seen
tell
that?
you? And also, there's people looking at the Snell Farm to develop that as well, which is a lot of acreage down there. And the little red house that's right there next to what was the old, is being
Yeah.
bought by somebody.
What are they gonna put in?
I don't know, they didn't say it. Karen didn't tell when she wrote this thing up.
Little red house.
A little red house. So things are happening. On the planning side anyways, quite busy.
So the part that's across from the track,
Mhm.
so they know there's noise. We're not gonna
There's
get,
noise.
you saw my email.
I saw your email. Okay.
so hopefully.
Well, there's
whoever buys
noise,
it-
it's rocky, it's swept, it is about 100 acres, but it's not all one parcel, it's pieced together that's owned by different people, but they have some kind of cooperative or something at this point. Yeah, it would come right out by the racetrack, I mean, that's the entrance way. It looks like it'd be condo units they're going after. It'd be like Darby Field is what they're looking at.
Well, hopefully, if they goes through, we don't get complaints that, oh geez, we need to do something about that noise across the road, it's bothering me, and
So that's all I have. The last thing is this discussion of Article 5 and 6 for wording. Are you comfortable? You're not.
It's important that we craft warrant articles that are as clean and precise as possible. You know, so not only do they have to pass muster with the DRA, who, as you know, reviews the warrant, you know, it has happened,
Can we pause the meeting for a few minutes?
that,
I motion for a slight adjournment, Mr. Chairman.
Cedar Home used to do that all the time. Couldn't get through the entire meeting.
Well, what can I tell you? I'm not gonna tell you.
Didn't matter how long it was.
Oh, I talked to the Historical Society. They're gonna put up a plaque about these pictures.
Oh,
that
good.
explains the pictures.
That'd be great.
And where they're from and who supplied them and who.
That's really nice. Put some nice and, get some feeling inside here. This is good.
So I also got a letter on eBay today from a relative of Jeremiah Smith, who's writing to her sister in Peterborough. So we're gonna, the Historical Society's gonna have it, put with the other stuff about Jeremiah Smith, that the Grange is named for. He was a lawyer and stuff in town. This is from his cousin, I think, but it talks about him and, so, it's from 1842. That doesn't need to go on the minutes, because we're adjourned. We paused the meeting for you.
Okay.
We paused the meeting for you.
We're opening the meeting back again. Thank you. Town Administrator, you have the floor.
So again, it's important that we craft warrant articles that are as clear and precise as possible. Not only do they have to pass muster with the DRA, even if a warrant article goes through from the DRA and gets passed, it has been known to happen that some citizen who doesn't like the way it was presented takes a town to court. So, and advocacy is one of those issues. I mean, I don't know if any of you were on the email string with Eric Sawtell, raised that as an issue. Without getting too far into it, I mean, I can, there's, court cases, and you just want to try to make the warrant article
Clean.
You don't want to have any trouble with it. Certainly if it passes, that's great. You don't want to have to get into some court battle because someone who was opposed to it didn't like the way that you presented it.
Well, could you make the changes and then send it to us?
Yep.
Then that will assure that we are comfortable in terms of what they say.
Yep.
And then you can pass them on to DRA to see if it passes their muster.
I mean, I guess just on Article 6, and I don't want to get too deeply into this. We're calling it the Town Center Project. I mean, my understanding from all the meetings I ever went to, that the intent was that if the purchase of the church property couldn't happen, for whatever reason, that the project could still go forward,
Yes.
but Town Hall would be located at Stevens Field.
Well, the corollary to that is if we don't get extra property at the town center location,
Yeah.
so those other things are going to be problematic to accomplish. You're not going to get a large enough parking lot. You're going to have problems in terms of adding on to the library. So that's why I think no matter what happens, Article 5 needs to be, I think the town needs to buy that property no matter what. So I think when we talk about, because one of the things we added is in terms of, wherever it is, number 5, is in terms of, you've got town offices in there too, right? I think you added that. Well, I guess we'll see.
Well, we added town offices to Article 6.
Yes. But I think when we start saying if a new town hall, really, town offices will be constructed at the current town center, if Article 5 passes. If it does not, new town hall will be constructed at Stevens Field. That's part of the whole project going forward. I don't necessarily want people to come to say, I don't want it at town center, I want it at Stevens Field, so I'm gonna vote against number 5.
Well, I guess
I
the
don't
only
want that to
concern that I would have, now again, let's remember that the town center has been defined as being a bigger geographical, that even by saying town center project, I hope that that's not limiting
I hope not.
what we might be able to do.
Because I think one of the things that the town has to have the conversation, because the facilities committee said, 2D, we build it at a town center, and if we can't get the church property, it's on Stevens Field. I think this town, based on the conversation we had with department heads, I think this town needs to decide where it is. But I don't think that has to come before we buy the church property.
Yeah, the church property stands on its own merits.
Right,
Yeah.
yes.
So
But-
I don't want to write channel 6, Article 6 to say it's going to be on Stevens Field or it's going to be in Town Center. I think we want to leave it just, because we have to have those conversations. And I can see pluses and minuses to both locations.
Okay, do we not even want to call it the town center project?
Well, you got to tell the people what it's for.
Yeah, no, I know, I mean, you could, I don't know, you could still say that you're gonna renovate this and add on to that without,
Well, and like, it depends on, I think you were alluding to this before in terms of Town Center. Town Center is defined, I think in the last thing, as being 1 mile or something circumference.
half a mile, quarter
Yeah.
mile?
So I think maybe we can find a different term, because people say town centers, just like, we talk about town hall, town offices.
Right.
I think town center, right now, people think just over there.
Right.
That's correct.
So if that's what you're alluding to, I'm amenable to
I mean,
other
changing
times.
it to the facilities project, I mean, is there some other word that doesn't tie your hands in terms of,
And I agree, it's far over to Bricker property where it was before,
Mhm.
all the way out to public safety complex here, and absolutely, so we need a little bit better words. But I agree, the church property is almost an independent, it stands on its own merits.
Can you say, not to exceed 100,000, schematic, design, preliminary engineering, and construction management fees for renovations to
Yeah.
the existing?
Yeah.
And get rid of that completely?
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
basically, that's what it is.
Yeah.
You're renovating and painting the library, renovating the town hall, historical museum, tool shed, and include the new town offices in there
Yeah.
too.
yeah, well, I already
You
made a
already
note,
have that.
I already made a note to add that.
Because then you're telling them what you're gonna do.
Yeah.
You're
There
not
it is.
saying
Black and
what
white.
it is.
Yeah,
Because hopefully the library doesn't construe that they're gonna get a new building someplace else, but.
Because we don't have to buy the Stevens land, we already have it anyway, so it doesn't make a difference.
okay, yeah, I will make these changes and get them to you tomorrow.
Okay.
And you'll do the calculations in terms
Yeah.
of town meeting.
Yeah.
And the reason I come up with 30% versus 70%, I'm figuring the library is about a third of it.
That's what I figured.
It's a
you
little
had.
bit, it's a little bit less, but that's how I came up with those particular percentages.
We good?
I think so. Oh, can I ask a question?
Of course.
And I know Mr. Hum's not here to yell at me, but in terms of this article about the,
7.49?
yeah, I'm not, I still don't get it. I don't know, sure in terms of what the essence is of hurrying up and getting it in this year. I think we can wait. But I still don't know why we have to hurry it up, because it's already covered, it's already town property. It's not on the warrant for this year, so nothing's gonna happen to it, so why can't we wait?
Board could change it.
I mean, we couldn't really sell it, it's landlocked, it's not like we could sell it to a developer.
It's
if that's-
landlocked, all right.
I mean, if that's the worst case scenario from a conservation standpoint.
Well, even if you get variances, you're not gonna get variances to do anything with the vernal pools themselves, so, I don't know. Maybe I don't know all the information.
Well, we
That's
got
up
the
to-
22nd to make a final decision.
Okay.
Motion to adjourn?
Second. All in favor?
All right.
Aye. Thank you.